Okay, the questions that look like these last few questions are going to basically ask you to identify not just where the cosine or sine is one thing, but what are all the possible points that have that same value. So if you look at this question right here, the sine of theta is negative root 2 over 2. The first thing that you can identify here is sine on the unit circle corresponds to what coordinate, x or y? Sine is the y, right? So if you know that your sine is negative, which quadrants have a negative y? You know your answer has to be in both these quadrants, right? So what we're going to look for when we plot this point is a point that has a negative root 2 over 2. Do you recall a negative root 2 over 2 on the unit circle corresponds to what angle measure? Oops. The 45 degrees, right, are the root 2 over 2 for both. And so you know that in the negative of these is going to be this point and this point. They both have, again, when you kind of compare the coordinates here, the y coordinates are negative root 2 over 2. And so those would be your solutions. And so ideally, what you're doing is you're looking to find where those fit. Okay? What about the sine of 0? Yes, Alexa.
Will there be an extra practice for the angles for the finding the points on a unit circle like there is for the last one?
Yes, it should already be there. But I'll double check it. All right, so what about this next one? What angle has a sine of 0? So again, sine corresponds to the y. So what points on the unit circle have a 0 for the y-intercept? Or 0 for the y-coordinate? This point, right? And then this point. Okay? And so those are the 2 points that have a sine of 0. What about a cosine of minus 1/2? So first of all, which quadrants will these be in? Cosine is a x-coordinate, so the quadrants that have negative x-coordinates are here. So you know it has to fall in these 2 quadrants. And so when you find the negative 1/2, again, if you use the idea of this first quadrant and you have memorized the 3 points at these locations here, so this one is the longer x, so that's root 3 over 2. This one is root 2 over 2 for both. And then this one is the shorter side first, so 1/2 and then root 3 over 2. All right, so we want the cosine of 1/2 corresponds to these, the 60 degrees. So what we want to do is we're mirroring this across. So if we mirror this across here, we get this point. And then we mirror this across vertically, we get this point. So here's the 2 points that have the same x-coordinate of minus 1/2. Right, and so you can find it just using sort of visual cues and how the points line up that have the same sines and cosines.